Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Real Wisdom Artificial Intelligence. So today is June 13th, and I am here on a sailboat. We are right now on way to Gloucester from Boston. So it's me, Michael, and my wife Kiran on this sailing vessel Serenity on our way to Gloucester, and I'm bringing you this from the sailboat. We are about 2 hours away from Gloucester. So let's go ahead get started for today. Today's dose of Rashmi is intellect operating by itself competes based on perceived identities. Integrated intelligence, on the other hand, is the clarity to compete joyfully without the outcome controlling your experience of life. So it is very apt that I'm recording this right now. We're in the midst of FIFA World Cup soccer tournament, the greatest sporting tournament with all the countries all over the globe competing. And sports is a great example where while you are on the field, you compete intensely yet, at the end of the game, all the players shake hands and you end up being friends with some of your most fiercest rivals. I've talked about Federer and Nadal in the past. And today's dose of Rashmi reminded me of something else that I have written about in the past in this series. It was one of the most fulfilling sports watching experiences for me. It was the 2019 ICC Cricket World Cup final. The game was between New Zealand and England. And when we had booked the tickets, I was hoping India was going to be there. However, my team India did not get to the finals. So going into the game, we were a little disappointed. However, we ended up at the game, and I was rooting for New Zealand in that game. And for those of you who follow cricket or who know about that game, it was the closest possible cricket game that could ever be. New Zealand lost in the end on some technicalities. So I was rooting for New Zealand throughout that game amongst a sea of England supporters. And we were going back and forth at each other throughout the game. And at the end of the day, New Zealand lost that game on some technicality. If it had been India which had lost that way, my experience of the next probably week, 10 days would have been completely ruined. Yet, because it was New Zealand, and while I was rooting for them very, very intensely, when the game got over, because I was not so intensely identified with that team, I could enjoy the moments that unfolded. I actually remember hugging it out with all the English supporters that we were going back and forth at it throughout the game. And then I soaked in the entire closing ceremony, the prize distribution, and all the speeches and the entire atmosphere fully. And that would not have happened if I was intensely identified with a team that lost the game. So that was one of the best sports watching experiences for me. And it taught me this lesson that what ends up ruining our experiences, this extreme strong attachment to a perceived identity. While the game is on, absolutely compete. Uh, I think that is the beauty of sports. Compete intensely, yet when the sports is over, when the game is over, shake hands and move on. And in fact, the best demonstration of that was by Kane Williamson, the New Zealand skipper, who's one of my favorite cricketers. And he just announced his retirement about 2 days back. And that day really made me such a huge fan of Kane Williamson because after losing the game, how gracious he was in that loss and in his post-match comments. He could have been better because they were denied victory on some technicality, and all the fans were bitter. He could have been better. However, what he displayed that day was sheer grace. That was a lesson in humility for anybody, and a lesson in how to be a wonderful human being. And coming to this series, Real Wisdom Artificial Intelligence, that is how we will go from race to conscious grid scenario that I keep talking about in terms of the AI future. If we all can realize that the competition and the identities that we are taking on in trying to be ahead of others in this AI race. These are just made up identities. Eventually, none of them really serve the greater well being of the humanity. And if more of us can truly start operating from the care that emerges beyond these perceived identities, as I talked about yesterday, then the conscious grid will emerge. That is what we are hoping, that more of us can see that. That is why we are building the Rashmi Mirror in the enterprise edition of the Rashmi Mirror. Thank you.